So hello and welcome to another episode of TopTenz. I am your hostess with the mostest, Karl Smallwood. That's Karl with a K and Smallwood with a small followed by a wood. It's very funny, yes, let's move on. And today we're talking about 10 wild reasons children have been arrested/suspended. And one thing I'd like to get right out of the way is that I'm really not that well today. I'm on the tail end of an illness that has left me bedridden for the last few days. So if you're thinking, does Karl look paler and sicklier than usual? Is that a British thing? It's like, no, I'm not well. And I'm British, which is a horrible combination for creating content online because it just results in me looking like the Grim Reaper's passport photo. I know, it's not great. Let's get to it. Oh yeah, and today's video is based on a script submitted to us by Gregory Myers. Give them a follow at the social media links below. A common talking point as an adult when reminiscing about your youth is to remember and just cringe about all the dumb stuff you did as a kid. Playing pranks, farting on our friends, and dressing up in stupid clothes because it's not a phase, mum. These are all part of growing up and are all things kids somewhere out there have been arrested or suspended for. Don't believe us? Just consider the following 10 tales of youthful hijinks that ended with school suspension or worse, starting with number 10. A Florida 10-year-old was once arrested for farting in class. Most of us have probably accidentally passed gas in an embarrassing way at least once. Hell, I'll bet there's some guys out there watching this right now that have done so in a way that made them feel an odd sense of pride and accomplishment. For most of us though, ripping ass is something we apologise for, look sheepish about and attempt to chameleon our way into the background to avoid any further embarrassment. Especially if it happens in school in front of a girl you like. But, you know, it happens, and as long as school exists, there will be class clowns causing ass-based disruptions because they think they're the funniest people who've ever lived. Now, usually, when a situation like this gets out of control, the teacher starts with threats and eventually sends the offending student to the principal's office. We mean, if the fart really stinks, the student will then have to accept the school's discipline for their behaviour and will have to hear about it from their probably mortified parents. This is why it's so strange that one time in a Florida school it escalated much further than that. A 13-year-old boy was actually arrested for his disrupting cutting of the cheese and later even admitted to it, which led to charges of disrupting a school function. Why the police need to be called for the simple act of playing the old ham trombone is a question that will probably never be answered in a satisfactory way. So let's move on. Number 9, a 10-year-old boy was arrested for public urination. For boys, peeing outside is a rite of passage, and to all the ladies out there listening, it really is just the best. Nothing beats pretending your wang is a lightsaber and the first freshly laden snow of winter is Darth Vader. Just no. Anyway, for some though, it is a crime to be punished to the absolute fullest extent of the law, like when the police came across a young boy in Alabama taking a whiz behind the wheel of his mother's car. Not like the steering wheel, like, you know, the back wheel. Make that clear, because I think the mother would have something to say about the former, but maybe not the latter. So the child, who was called, get this, Quantavius, was spotted by a police officer committing the deed, who alerted his mother to the crime in progress. Quantavius's obviously embarrassed mother thanked the officer and began reprimanding her equally as embarrassed and awesomely named son, which is where you think the story would end. Slap on the wrist, do better next time, no harm, no foul. Then a bunch more police officers arrived, decided they needed to arrest the child for taking a whiz, which they did, with the mother stood like right there, becoming increasingly flustered at the whole ordeal, because remember, this all started because her kid really needed to pee and decided to strip the paint of her station wagon. Quantavius was later released without incident and the police profusely apologised, as they should. Kid need to pee, man. Number 8, a 14-year-old boy was arrested for building a clock. Perhaps the most famous story on this list, but for anyone who needs a reminder or is somehow unfamiliar with the tale, in September 2015, a young kid called Ahmed Mohammed walked into his Texas high school with something he wanted to show his engineering teacher, a disassembled digital clock he'd rebuilt and put inside of a small briefcase. This was par for the course for Ahmed, who'd on other occasions built a device to screw with a classroom projector, and even a portable device to charge a phone. In 2015, mind you. Clearly a bright kid and one who was known to his classmates and teachers as something of an eccentric who liked to tinker with electronics. Well, almost all of his teachers, because his English teacher took one look at the device and assumed it had to be a bomb. called the police and had Ahmed's ass arrested. It took hours for the whole thing to be sorted out, but a fire had been started, and it had begun spreading on social media. Commenters were quick to point out how quickly everyone involved had jumped to the conclusion that it was a bomb based almost entirely on Ahmed's background. His family is of Sudanese ancestry and are of the Muslim faith, and they were kind of pissed about it. Eventually, the freaking White House had to comment on the matter, with then President Barack Obama being impressed by Ahmed's, and I quote, cool clock, and inviting him to the White House. Number 7. Students suspended for making memes about their principal. We all had a teacher at school that we just didn't get on with. You know, the type, a stickler for the rules, a real hard ass who makes every day spent in their presence last an age. The kind of teacher that genuinely makes you question why someone who seems to hate the idea of being around children opted for a career that involves spending so much time with them. That's the general attitude kids attending Tullahoma High School in Tennessee got from their then principal, Jason Quick. One of these students, in an attempt to get Quick to pull the stick out of his ass, made a couple of memes about their principal while on vacation, the descriptions of which are actually far funnier than the memes themselves. Don't believe us? Well, here's how the Washington Post described one meme Quick found particularly hurtful. The meme shows Quick's head superimposed on a cartoon meant to resemble a video game character. In the image, Mordecai, a cartoon bird from the Cartoon Network's regular show, clings to Quick's legs above a caption that reads, "No, Jason, don't look at me," to imply Quick had a relationship with the cartoon bird. Not exactly our style of humour, we admit, but we weren't the target audience. Neither was Quick, who nonetheless was very quick to suspend the student. Clearly, they'd never taught a class on the Streisand effect. Within days, the memes were all over the internet, and the kid responsible had filed a lawsuit against the school for violating their First Amendment rights. Unsurprisingly, the school almost immediately walked back the suspension, because as it says right there in the Constitution, it is every American's God-given right to draw their principal hugging a cartoon bird. Eagle noises. Number 6. Kid suspended for war paint. School sports are a pretty big deal in America, so much so that some high school games get more people watching them than league games for Division 2 football games in the UK. With this in mind, you can probably guess that some people get really into them. Costumes, celebrations, the whole 9 yards, if you'll forgive the pun. Imagine then the surprise Daniel Amadori felt when his 13-year-old son was suspended from school for wearing warrior paint at a high school football game. You know, the stuff that the players wear and they, as the father himself would point out in a later interview, sell at sporting goods stores across the country. Well, apparently, the principal of Muirlands Middle School had no idea what this stuff is, despite, as mentioned, half the football team playing that day wearing it, and suspended Amadori's son because he figured the kid had to be wearing blackface. And obviously that is something that should be punished, but that's not what was happening here. I mean, the paint job is a little sloppy, but that's to be expected when a kid puts it on themselves. As this story only broke earlier this year, we're still waiting on a conclusion to the whole ordeal, though it is noted that the family is in the process of suing the school. Number 5. A kid threatened with suspension for having blue hair. School uniforms aren't really a thing over in the States, but many schools will have some kind of dress code that limits extremes in dress and hairstyle, and every few months a story will break about some kid being suspended for rocking a look the establishment can't handle, like the 6-year-old who was suspended for rolling into kindergarten with a mohawk like an absolute badass, or this other kid in the UK who was also suspended for turning up to school with a rad mohawk that the teachers said was dangerous because, get this, it could poke another student in the eye. They just let those kids be the badasses that they are. Of course, there's also a bunch more frustrating stories when it comes to this, like black kids being suspended for rocking dreads or an afro, which all suck because, as every article covering stories like this note, these students are effectively being punished for simply wearing their hair the way it naturally grows out of their own heads. Hell, there's even a story about a Native American boy being suspended for rocking a mohawk. In the latter case, the student was only allowed to keep wearing their sick-ass mohawk when someone from the Seneca National Tribe wrote to the school to inform them that the mohawk is a traditional hairstyle for many Native Americans. And one last thing about this story that makes it kind of amazing, the school that the kid got suspended from was called the Arrowhead Elementary School. You really can't make this stuff up. Clearly that school didn't teach history. Then we have 12-year-old Olivia Schaefer, who was threatened with suspension because she rocked up to school with bright blue hair, something the dean of Discovery Middle School could not deal with, because surely someone with blue hair might be distracting to other students. I mean, what possible excuse could she have for needing her hair to be blue? Oh, she was set to appear in a school performance of The Little Mermaid, in which she was set to play an eel and needed to have coloured hair and didn't want it to look like crap, so dyed it a few days beforehand. Oh, that makes perfect sense. The dean disagreed and threatened her with suspension, much to the bafflement of everybody else involved. And I'm just going to put it out there. I think all school performances should be movies, and they should be made on a budget of like $100. And I say this because of that. Like, this story went viral a few years ago, and hopefully we can put clips of it in because it's fantastic. Is where some kids put on a performance of Alien, and they really, really went for it. Like, to the point where they dressed up like the tallest kid in school and was like the alien, like creeps around, and they put on a full performance of Alien that was really good, and it really does work as a stage play. And it was so good that like Ridley Scott himself reached out, gave them $5,000 to put on an encore performance that Sigourney Weaver attended. It's amazing, and I think all school performances should just be that, like just doing popular movies on a budget of like $100. Anyway. Number 4, kids getting arrested for participating in school food fights. We all know the scene, we've seen it in countless movies. Someone throws food at someone and someone else yells, "Food fight!" A few more people throw some stuff and the rest of the people get angry or shrug or just join in. And on it goes. Burgers get shot putted, pizzas get frisbeed, and potatoes become lethal projectiles. The principal eventually walks in and blows a whistle, causing everybody to immediately stop, stare in dread as they realise they're about to be punished. And as we know, punishment always comes. Kids are suspended, their parents are called, and the parents tack on yet more punishment. However, in some American states, they take it a bit more seriously than just a suspension or a call to your mum. After a food fight in Texas, 10 students were charged for their part in starting it and were given the very serious criminal charge of inciting a riot. Now, the state of Illinois is not quite as strict, but when it comes to mass juvenile arrests over throwing food, they do have Texas beat, just in terms of sheer numbers. As a food fight at a charter school in Chicago, 25 students were arrested for their participation and were charged with misdemeanor reckless conduct. There ever been a food fight? I've been in a food fight once. I can't share the picture because it's like a bunch of my friends who obviously wouldn't want their picture on the internet in a random YouTube video. But I just remember when it all started because we were just having a barbecue. And we just left some sausages on the grill, and they just turned like into like these absolute just charcoal hot dogs. And we were like, no, there's only one thing we're doing with them, and they're getting launched. They're getting launched with some like ferocity. And just my friend just frisbeed a hot dog across to one of the other friends, and it twatted him like right in the eye. And just that was it. And then it was just like, oh yeah. So it got to the point where we were just like filling up paper plates, covering them in ketchup, and then just throwing them at each other. That was a good day. Number 3, kid arrested for not saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The First Amendment is pretty simple and is by design written to be quite broadly interpreted. In short, you have the right to express yourself freely so long as doing so doesn't infringe upon the rights of others to do the same. Fairly basic stuff. Or at least you'd think so, right? We say this because in 2019, an 11-year-old in Florida was arrested for refusing to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Fun fact here, your right to free speech also means you have the right to not say something, because silence is just as valid a form of expression and in some cases can say more. Well, you know, figuratively. And the story here goes that a substitute teacher at a Polk County public school was so incensed at a child refusing to recite the pledge that they began threatening them, saying among other things that if they didn't like America, they could leave. And reminder that the child in this situation was like 11 and also super totally correct in what they were saying. West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett in 1943 established that it is indeed illegal to force a student to stand for or recite the pledge. Free speech works both ways. This hasn't stopped this exact story from happening multiple times, with each case ending with the ACLU crawling up the school board's arse with a microscope, as they are wont to do. Our favourite story, though, of all the times this happened is when a teacher got so annoyed at a student for refusing to recite the pledge that they then passively aggressively played Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA at them while asking the class to write an essay about how the song made them feel proud to be an American. You can't make this stuff up. And if anyone out there's wondering, wait a minute, what? Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA? What's the deal? One, go listen to the song. And I mean, really listen to the song. And then just go look at any interview with Bruce Springsteen talking about the song. And then just go look at how many people unironically play it as like an anthem celebrating America. And you'll just do this. Oh, I hate the world. Number 2, a 14-year-old boy was arrested for hacking to prank his teacher. Many of us have done that thing where we've gotten onto a sibling or friend's computer and put a silly or embarrassing image as their wallpaper. It's innocent, kid stuff, and mostly considered a childish prank by all involved and all who witness it. It usually ends with a few laughs and maybe some harmless payback from the affected party. However, one time in an American school, a 14-year-old boy's prank was taken far more seriously than our childhood pranks ever were. The menacing youth committed the horrible crime of hacking into a school's computer system so he could plant an image of 2 men kissing on the computer of a teacher he did not like. That's just such a stupid, specific thing. Oh, to be young. Now, you might think, since real hacking was involved, the charge of criminal mischief might be in order. And for anyone curious about how the kid hacked into the system, in an interview they said they just watched the teacher put the password in over their shoulder and copied it later. Clearly a master criminal, but instead, the police went right ahead and charged the child with a full-on felony cyber crime. Their argument for doing this is that the child could have done something much worse, like tampering with grades. We live in Minority Report world now, let's go. Now, most people would likely argue that this same fact is actually in the child's favour, as he could have done something way worse and just did a stupid kid thing, like plant a picture of 2 men kissing on a teacher's computer. And hey, there's nothing at all wrong with the concept of a police officer choosing to charge someone for a crime they might have committed. Yes, nothing terrifying about that thought at all. And I actually had a bit here and I forgot. I'm going to grab my laptop. And I did have a plan for a bit here while my laptop was charging, where I was going to be like, yeah, and I would really, really not like it if someone played that prank on me, because I would hate for my background to be changed. That is legit my background. I don't know, I just really like Karl Ray Jepsen. And just like the Karl Ray Jepsen being in Smash Bros makes me giggle every single time. And if anyone doesn't know the backstory to that, there was a very famous post on the internet a few years ago where they went to that, is it like the government website where you can submit petitions, and the petition was simply, give Karl Ray Jepsen a sword. And it's like, I like her and think she deserves it. And then at a concert, someone just now at Karl Ray Jepsen concerts, people just keep handing her swords. It's dumb. Let's move on. Speaking of dumb, number 1, a teenager was suspended for wearing a Pepsi shirt on Coca-Cola Day. Dress codes are kind of dumb, and as mentioned previously, most schools just tell kids not to be too outlandish or extreme in their manner of dress and to avoid wearing something that would upset another person. Think like an anime shirt or something like that. But what about an outfit that, say, upsets the monolithic corporate sponsor the school is trying to suck up to? If your first thought is wanting us to explain what the hell we mean by that, settle in as we tell you all about Coca-Cola Day. Beginning life as an idea proposed by the students of Greenbrier High School in Georgia in 1998 to win over Coca-Cola execs in nearby Atlanta, Coke Day was a one-off event organized to try and win a competition held by Coca-Cola that was open to any American school. Well, any American school that hadn't already signed an exclusivity deal with PepsiCo. America! Something that didn't sit right with known legend and possible hero Mike Cameron, who decided to ruin a photo op where students dressed head to toe in Coca-Cola red and white that would spell out the word Coke for gathered Coke execs by instead wearing a shirt sporting the logo of their rival, Pepsi. Cameron was immediately suspended, which of course instantly backfired when the news caught wind of a student being punished for refusing to kowtow to a corporation at school. For anyone curious, the school did this in the hopes of winning a $500 gift card. It's like the most American thing I've ever heard. Cameron, who was a senior at the time, mostly found the whole thing funny and spent the rest of his suspension talking to the gathering news crews, largely expressing his confusion at why anybody at his school cared. An exec from Coca-Cola, for example, reportedly found the shirt funny, and there was another student who also wore a Pepsi shirt just to ruin the whole thing who wasn't singled out like he was. But of course, we know the question that you're all burning to know. What did PepsiCo think of this? Well, when they were reached out to for comment, an exec told the news, without knowing all of the details, it sounds like Mike's obviously a trendsetter with impeccable taste in clothes. They then noted how they were going to send Mike a whole bunch of Pepsi branded stuff as a thank you for supporting the brand at school. America! So I hope everybody found this video to be entertaining, educational, and informative. I've been your host, Karl Smallwood. The original script was written by one Gregory Myers. Social media links for us both can be found below. I hope you liked this video. You can leave a like if you did. You can comment with feedback, suggestions, stories from your youth if you are okay to tell them you did nothing illegal, and subscribe for more content like this. As I always like to say, go out there and have the day that you deserve. Apologies for my manic energy in this one. I'm really trying to get through this illness that has been just kicking my ass for the last few days. So I'm hoping that if I act like I have energy, I'll have energy. You know, fake it till I make it. That's the thing. And this is the thing I've done for the last couple of videos, so I guess I'll do it in this one too, which is just submitting to the editors an embarrassing photo of myself tangentially related to the topic of the video, because Americans, you don't really have school photos, right? You have school photos, but you don't have like dress codes or uniforms. Like in the UK we do. So like there's a series of images that I like to show of just me at school where you can just see the youthful innocence just be gone from my eyes. It's like me when I'm a little kid and I have a dumb little bowl cut and I'm like, and then the later ones when I thought I was all cool and rock hard and got like a shaved head, and then there's one when I'm like in middle school and awkward and fat and I'm like, ugh. And they're all great and I love them. And now I look back at them and think, you go little Karl, you go. I would love to go back to my past self when he was like sat playing Final Fantasy VII and just say to him like, look, I'm Karl, I'm you from the future. He goes, wow, what are you doing? I goes, well, at the moment, I am waiting for Final Fantasy VII 2 to be released on the PlayStation 5 and just disappear like a fart in the wind. And just see how that, like, you know, just ruinously traumatizes me. Cheers, everybody.